So you're working on a new wood project, but it's not coming out the exact color that you want. And in some of those cases, it might be time to use a little wood stain. But depending on who you ask, they might give you a variety of different answers and colors and brands and types to use, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I'm not here to tell you what brand or kind of stain to use, but rather I want to show you how to prepare your wood, apply your stain, and get the most longevity from your project. Now when it comes to adding stain, about 90% of the battle is actually prepping your wood ahead of time. We need to make sure that we sand down our wood so it's nice and smooth. We got to be careful of how we sand it, in the direction that we sand it, and exactly how smooth we get it, or we could have other problems. Let me show you. First and foremost, we need to find the direction of the grain. In this case, it's going side to side. In your case, maybe it's going back and forth, or maybe even at a diagonal. Just know exactly the direction of your grain, because it doesn't matter if you're using a power operated sander or just a hand sander, it's best to follow that grain whenever you're sanding. Now maybe you're asking, what's the big deal? Why do I always have to follow the direction of the grain? Well, if you were to go across the grain, you might not be able to see it, but it's going to create a bunch of minor little scratches that will show up later when you start to add your finish, and then it will look horrible. So do your best to follow the grain. Let me mention some sandpaper real quick for you. Whenever you're sanding your wood, we got to remember that it comes in a variety of different coarseness, or the particles that are on the paper. A good rule of thumb is remember that the smaller the number, the larger the particles are, and the larger the particles, the bigger and deeper grooves it will create as you're trying to sand. So in other words, an 80 grit has a much larger grit than say a 120 or a 220. Now for most of my wood projects, the highest number I will go whenever I'm sanding is 120. That usually gets the wood smooth enough for what I need and for the stain I'm going to apply. But on a rare occasion, I might go up to 220 just to get it a little bit smoother. But remember, do not go above 220, because once you get above that, it's a little harder for the wood to actually accept the stain. Now, one of the best explanations I've ever been told about not going above 220 is whenever you are staining wood, the stain tries to find all the little holes and crevices and pores that are in the wood, thus adhering to it and giving it its color. But when you go above 220, you start getting rid of all those little holes and crevices and pores, and thus the stain can't do its job. Here's a little tip I just recently learned and wanted to pass on to you. If you've ever stained wood before, the end grain usually comes out darker than the side grain, and that can be just a little bit annoying, especially, well, the way you design your project, it just might not look right. But I just recently found out that if you were to take a little bit finer grit, so instead of 220, maybe take like 400 and use it only on the end grain, sometimes it'll come out a little bit lighter and be a lot closer to the color of your side grain. Now, of course, test this out on some scrap before you put it on your main project, just to see if it's going to work for that particular species of wood, but give it a shot. Now that we have all the sanding done, it's very important to make sure we remove all the dust from our project before we stain it. Yes, I know that seems basic, but there's been times I've been in a rush and totally forgot. To do that, I recommend getting a vacuum cleaner and sucking up as much of the dust and particles that you can off of your project. And then grab yourself a tack cloth. A tack cloth is kind of a waxy, sticky type of rag that'll reach into the fibers and pull out a lot of those fine particles that your vacuum couldn't suck up. And if by chance you buy a multi-pack of your tack cloth, or you just have some left over after your project, I'd strongly suggest putting it in some kind of a plastic bag that zips across the top or seals across the top. Otherwise, this right here is a dust magnet. Here's an important tip. Some stains, as they're drying, will actually take the fibers of your wood and have them stand almost straight up. So after it dries, the wood now feels real gritty, almost like sandpaper itself. It doesn't have that nice smooth finish right after sanding. Let me show you a tip to help prevent that. First, get you a rag, and you want to get this nice and moist. You don't want it to be just dripping water, but you do want it to be nice and wet. And then take it and gently blot it across the top of your wood, trying to get your surface just barely damp. Then give this time to dry, and in that process, those fibers are now going to stand up, and you can take some sandpaper and just gently go across it and knock them all down. Now, this won't stop all of the issues, but it will prevent a lot of them. At this point, I have to mention a little bit about safety. Just remember that stains or any kind of coating you're putting on woods usually have a bunch of different chemicals in them. So make sure you're in a well-ventilated area whenever you're applying any of them. Also, it's a really good idea to have some kind of eye protection, some gloves, and something to protect your clothing, because once you get it on you, it's very hard to remove. Now, if you're building your projects out of a softwood, say like pine, there is a good chance when you start to apply the stain, there might be a little unevenness or not exactly a uniform color going all the way across. Now, that really depends on if you like that style or you don't. I personally like that style. I think it gives it a little more character. But if you don't, then you might want to consider using a pre-wood conditioner. A pre-stain conditioner just goes on before you apply your stain, and make sure you follow the directions on the back because it'll tell you exactly how long to wait before you can apply your normal stain to make sure this has fully dried. And it's finally time to grab our stain. But there's a couple more things we need to do before we start to apply it. First, remove the lid, and then we need something to stir it. In my case, I like using these jumbo craft sticks because they're made out of wood and it's just easy to get in there and stir. Now you can leave the rounded edge here, or sometimes I'll even cut it off flat because we need to get in and start stirring this in a steady, smooth motion to get any clumps that may have settled onto the bottom down here, because we need to get those back into suspension. Otherwise, if you don't, your color will be off. Now some of you might be asking, why don't I just take the stain and shake it really good? You do that with paint all the time and it works fine. Well, I've always been trained not to shake your stain. It'll introduce too much air particles into it and it will just have a hard time staining your wood. Now I'm not going to sit here and act like I know all the chemical reasons why not to do that, but that is how I was trained, so that is how I would recommend you not to shake your stain, but rather just stir in a smooth, steady motion. Now that we have the stain, it's all mixed and it's ready to use, we need to test it. Go grab some of that scrap wood you have left over from that project, because we need to take that stain and we need to apply some of it to that wood. Reason being is that depending on the type of stain you're using and the wood you're using, it can completely change. For example, the color of your stain when it is in liquid form versus once it has dried can change drastically. Same thing with the species of the wood. Pine versus oak versus maple, if you try and stain those, that can change the color drastically for your outcome. So make sure you test it always before applying it to your project. It's now time to apply the stain to our project. Now you can use a brush, you can use a rag, it's whatever you'd like. Some people prefer the brush, some people prefer the rag. I actually prefer the rag. In either case, you want to use a slow, steady motion, making sure to follow the direction of the grain with the stain. After applying the stain, it's a good idea to remove any excess, but there are some different rules of thought on this. Some people say wait 5 to 10 minutes to let the stain absorb into the wood. I personally like to wipe off any excess almost immediately after applying it. In those cases, it helps me to prevent any blotchiness that could occur if the stain stays on there just a little bit too long. But always remember to read the instructions on the back of your stain, because there might be differences in the application process that could vary that application and removal of any excess. So always check those. Now after applying some stain to some projects, on occasion I'll look at it and go, I wish that was a little bit darker. It just didn't come out to that rich dark tone that I was hoping. That's actually easy to fix. All we need to do is just repeat that process of staining, adding a second layer on top of the first, and then of course wiping off any excess. Give that some time to dry and it should definitely be darker. Now in the process of choosing and buying your wood stains, you'll notice that some of them come in water-based and some of them come in oil-based. And just like normal water and oil won't mix, these two won't mix either. Now if by chance you accidentally mixed your two stains together, there could be some big issues in that process. You could have some major separations in the quality of your stain, or you could have some major spottiness all over your project. But in the worst case, it could just overall fail to dry, causing a just major gooey mess all over your beautiful project. Now let's say you've purchased your stain and your top coat. I'll explain a little bit more about this in a little bit, but let's say one of them's oil-based and one of them's water-based. and you don't have the resources to buy any more, and the store is just too far away, whatever the excuse is, you purchased the wrong ones. Can you make this work? In a way, possible. Let me explain. This problem once happened to me. I had an oil-based stained and a, oh no, water-based finish. That ain't gonna work. So I did a little research. I read the instructions on the back, and it said if you give at least 24 hours, you might be able to add a water-based finish. I did a little more research online, and most people agreed that to give it about 3 days, and that'll make sure that your oil base is fully dry, and it should be okay to apply your water-based finish. So keep that in mind. But when possible, try to avoid mixing any type of oil-based and water-based stains, and you're less likely to have any problems. So which is better, your oil-based stain or your water-based stain? Well, they both have their advantages. Your water-based stain usually dries a lot faster, has a lower odor, and is an easy water and soap cleanup. Versus the oil-based stain will sometimes have a richer color and be just more durable. So the choice is yours. Now after we've stained our project and we've made sure to let it fully dry, it's time to add a top coat or a finish coat to help protect the project for as long as possible. Now again, these come in a water-based and an oil-based, so make sure you grab the right one for the right stain. And just like the oil and water-based stains, the water-based dries a lot faster, but the oil-based tends to be a little more durable. Now here's a huge tip for you when you're adding your top coat finish. You need to go buy some 400 grit sandpaper. Yes, you heard me earlier, don't go above 220, but that was specifically for the wood. This is specifically for your finish. As mentioned before, sometimes when we add our stain, the wood fibers stand up and create that rough surface. Now we tried to prevent that earlier, but there's always a chance when we're adding our top coat that might happen again. And if that does happen, we need to get a small piece of that 400 grit sandpaper, because we want to just hand sand this really lightly to knock those fibers down. It should only take a couple passes over each little area to knock those down so you can't feel it. It'll feel nice and smooth. Once you've done that, of course, take some more tack cloth, wipe everything down again, and then add another layer of finish on top of the first. Now keep in mind, no matter which finish you choose, most manufacturers usually want you to do about 3 coats of finish on top of your project to thoroughly protect it. But just to be safe, make sure you read those instructions just in case yours is a little bit different. Now that we get the basics out of the way, I have a few other tips for you that'll help you in this process. Whenever you're using stain as a touch-up, for example, here's part of my miter saw, and as you can tell, it has been used and abused, and you could use a little bit of a touch-up right here on the edge. In these cases, if you don't have the original color, sometimes matching this up can be very difficult. So in those cases, it's always good to find a space or a spot where you wouldn't normally see it. For example, it would be the underside of this would probably be the smartest to test it out and see if that color is truly the same before using it on your specified spot. Now when you're using stain on panels, for example, those that have like a floating center, for example, a lot of cabinet doors have a frame and then the center is actually floating inside. And this allows for expansion and contraction of the wood so it doesn't actually break any of the joints. When you're staining something like this, it's a good idea to stain the center piece that's floating separate from the frame before you assemble it. Otherwise, with that expansion and contraction, you'll start to see little gaps that are missing stain and it just won't look good. And this last tip is extremely important. Once you get done applying your stain or your top coat, whatever you're working on, make sure you take the brush or the rag, whatever you're using, and place them outside on an open, flat surface. And make sure they fully dry before you dispose of them. Because otherwise, some of these products have been known to just spontaneously combust, catch fire. And if that happens in your garage, workshop, or basement, that's a major problem. So make sure you set them outside and let them dry fully on an open flat surface before you dispose of them. Now I hope you enjoyed the tips and tricks of how to apply stain to your projects. And if you have any other suggestions on how to make this better or just improve upon it, please list those in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Plus you'll help out a ton of other people. Otherwise, get out in your shop and have fun building.